Offer premium, value-added services. This way of making money off Fiverr actually involves you trading your time for money. Now, don't get upset. Don't finish this training just yet. Give me a chance to explain. The big difference is you pick higher premium services. This is the key. There are many services you can offer on Fiverr. Unfortunately, given the geographic distribution of service providers, you're going to get caught in a race to the bottom. That's right. There are people who are ready, willing, and eager to work 10 hours for $5. Are you willing to do that? If you're like most people who live in America or Western Europe, the answer should be a resounding no. After all, you value your time. If you just wanted to earn $5 for 10 hours of work, you probably would be doing something else. There are a million other things that you could be doing in your neck of the woods to earn far more money than $5. Let's not kid ourselves. However, that is always a possibility if you are careless regarding the service you offer. The first thing that you need to do is to pick higher premium services you can offer. If you type in a skill set or a service and it turns out that the average fee charged by the provider of that service on Fiverr is $100 or $200, then you may be onto something. Additionally, you can bundle many different tasks that you do yourself and you charge a premium. Here are some examples. If you want to just offer premium services and get paid more for every hour of actual work you do, then you should switch from SEO writing or regular website copywriting to higher value writing markets like technical writing, handbook writing for products, sales copywriting, or medical writing. Similarly, certain types of academic writing usually involving PhD dissertations pay a lot more money. You can also bundle services along with your main service. You're still offering writing services, but you would include a lot of add-on value. For example, you're offering SEO writing. Their client gives you a keyword and you write a 1,000-word article. Well, that kind of service is currently getting $5 on Fiverr. But you may get away with charging $10 or $15 for that same service if you add pictures to the text that you produce, format it so that it's more readable, and upload it to your client's WordPress website. Generally speaking, when people see add-on services put together in a bundle, they are more likely to pay extra. Advantages. There is really one advantage worth talking about here. You get a higher dollar value per unit of time and work you put in. You end up working less and earning more than the normal way of making money on Fiverr. Disadvantages. To offer premium services, you must first know how to perform such work. This requires mastery, expertise, credibility, and authority. In other words, you have to pay your dues. This is not something that you achieve overnight. I can't call myself an SEO expert after reading an online book or a couple of blog posts on SEO and then start offering that service on Fiverr. If I were to do that, people will see me for the fraud that I am, and I can only imagine what kind of reviews I'll get. It all boils down to results, and it takes quite a bit of time, effort, and focus to become an expert that delivers the kind of results the market demands. Are you willing to put in that time? Also, the higher value of the service, the more specialized it becomes. This increases the dollar value for that service. So far, so good, right? Well, here's the problem. This is basic economics. When the price of anything goes up, the demand usually goes down. That is the bottom line. People are always looking for cheaper alternatives. People are looking to break up expensive items into cheaper parts. There are all sorts of coping mechanisms to high prices. Your service is not immune to these. This might translate to limited demand. Now, this doesn't mean that this is the end of the world. If you were charging $200 per project, instead of getting a project every other day, you might get a project once a week. But if you were to add up all the orders that you get for that high-value service, you may actually still be making more money than if you were to offer a low-value service that is in higher demand. This is good news if you think about it. You work less, yet earn more money. What's not to love? Unfortunately, you have to be very careful regarding the niches of services you offer because some niches have such low demand that it's just not worth it regardless of how much money you charge. Another disadvantage to this Fiverr alternative is the need to build a brand or reputation. If you want to justify why you are charging $25 for something that other people charge $5 for, you'd better have a solid brand or reputation to back it up. As you can well imagine, it takes some time to develop such a reputation. You create a brand based on consistent quality. This takes time. Finally, there's always a chance that people will not buy from you if they see that you're offering a premium service on Fiverr. To these people, Fiverr is the kiss of death. These people have essentially written off Fiverr as far as quality goes. According to these individuals, when a service is listed on that platform, that service is no good. It's going to be almost impossible to persuade these people to buy from you regardless of the fact that you have a lot of testimonials and you are able to produce solid results. You're just going to have to live with this disadvantage. Unfortunately, depending on the niche of your service, the majority of people who might demand your service might think like this. Step-by-step directions. To offer value-added services, you need to take 3 steps. First, you need to figure out what your areas of expertise are. You have to write down all the things that you are good at. Please understand that these are things that you're actually good at. This means people compliment you or may have even paid you for this type of work. Of course, you did it as a favor, so the payment is basically a token. Regardless, there has to be some sort of objective indicator that people view you as an expert in a certain type of activity. This must be objective. This is not just your girlfriend telling you that you're a great writer. Of course, she says that even though she could barely read the stuff that you crank out because she doesn't want to hurt your feelings. That's not the kind of external validation I'm talking about. This has to be from people who would objectively say that you are a credible expert or an authority when it comes to this type of service. Look for those skills. Write them all down. Find high-value sub-niches or bundle small services you can do in your niche. Now that you have a list of things that you do reasonably well and that a lot of people praise you for, these services must already be listed on Fiverr. The next step is to look for sub-niches or specialized versions of those services. Research on Fiverr and see how much people are paying per service. You should have a clear understanding by this point of just how much your services are worth. Now you have to make a decision. Are you going to go ahead with this low-value service, or am I going to enhance its perceived value by doing other things that I would do myself? Again, going back to the writing example, if the only thing you can do reasonably well is to write SEO keyword articles, that's going to be the service you offer. However, this doesn't mean that you're going to offer that service for $5 just like everybody else. You can make things better for yourself by including additional services. You can say that you'll add pictures, you will format, you will add citations, you will interlink the stuff that you are producing with previous items on previous articles on your client's website, and you are also going to upload this material. All of a sudden, the service that you could have only charged $5 for per 1,000 words, you might be able to charge $15 or $20 for. The great thing about this is if you factor in all the additional services, they really don't add much time to the service. Most of the time is eaten up by the writing itself. This way, you actually increase the value of your time by including these add-on services. Create a package and get testimonials so as to convince people to buy your package. Bundle others' services and sell turnkey assets. What are turnkey assets? Turnkey assets are non-operational online assets like shells of websites, blogs with a small amount of content. The idea behind these sites is that the buyers of these sites have absolutely no clue how to put up a website. They don't know how to do it, or they don't want to know how. This is where you come in. You put in the time, effort, and energy to find specialists on Fiverr to put up a website. You pay them, and then you turn around and sell the starter website or low-content blog that they built for you. What are you really selling? Well, you're selling time, convenience, and most importantly, niche selection. You have to pick out the niche. You have to buy the domain name, and you have to customize the asset based on the niche. Those are the services that you are selling. Again, people would pay for this bundled service because either they don't have the expertise or they don't have the time to achieve that expertise. Advantages. This is probably one of the better ways to make more money selling other people's services. You're not selling your own labor. You are selling other people's labor. You also bundle different services together, so you leverage whatever is special in the services of others. This means that you get to play the owner of a sports team. Successful NBA professional basketball teams win championship after championship because the management knows how to cherry-pick the right talent. You can do the same on Fiverr. There are many highly talented and skilled people from many countries who do excellent work. You cherry-pick these people, so they work together to produce a website for you. Since your finished product is so vastly superior from digital assets created by just one person, you can charge a larger premium. Another great advantage to selling turnkey assets is the fact that the likely buyers of this type of bundle service tend to be professional buyers. Don't be surprised if the person who buys your website from you turns around and sells it to another person after your buyer pumps up the traffic, creates more content, and actually starts making money from the website you sold that person. They then take the website to the next level, and then they flip it for many times the price you charge them. That's how the game is played. What do you think will happen if that person is able to sell your pre-built turnkey asset for a lot of money? That's right. He or she will come back to you again and again and again. The bottom line here is simple. You are not selling your time directly. Sure, it takes time to play project manager and coordinate all these different Fiverr freelancers, but you're not doing the actual work. Your main work is basically finding a buyer. Disadvantages. The big disadvantage to this Fiverr monetization model is that you have to come up with the cash up front. You're going to have to pay your specialist up front. You're going to have to pay the person finding the domain name. You have to shell out some cash for the WordPress theme designer as well as the person customizing it. You probably would also have to get somebody to produce content as well as graphics. This can add up. The good news is, Fiverr is so cheap. Don't be surprised if it takes you all of $50 or a maximum of $75 to come up with an asset that you can turn around and possibly sell for $200, or if you really do your homework and are good at closing, $400. Another drawback to this model is that you need to pick the right niche, or your asset might not sell. This is a big one. If you pick a niche that has a fairly low demand or has very high standards, you're probably not going to sell the asset that you have built. While it's true that you can mark up the amount of money you paid the service providers to produce the asset, you still have to sell many of these assets to make real money. The average American needs to make around $5,000 just to achieve average income. This means that if you are turning around and flipping assets using Fiverr labor and your average is $200 a website, you need to move 25 of these sites. Now, that might seem like a low number, but you're basically going to have to give yourself a quota of selling one website pretty much every single day. That's quite a tall order. Another weakness of this business model is its focus on customization. You have to customize the asset each and every time. You cannot resell the same asset over and over again. You're not selling private label rights, PLR material here. The reason why you are able to charge a premium is because this is custom work. This brings up another disadvantage. Since you are dealing with custom work, there's no assurance that the people you hire to get work done on Fiverr will produce the same quality the next time around. This can ruin your reputation. You might have a repeat customer who is expecting the same high quality as the site that you just sold him or her, and it turns out that your service provider simply got lazy or just barely put in any effort and they produced crap. Not only would you fail to make a sale with your repeat customer, but that person will probably not come back. Finally, one of the most common ways you can sell turnkey assets is to list it on Flippa. Depending on your niche, your listed asset may not sell the first time you list it. This means that you have to relist it again and again. Unfortunately, you have to pay for each listing on Flippa, and these listing costs can cut into your profits. It's not unusual for people to get so desperate about unloading an asset that they price it so low, and when you factor in their Flippa listing fees, they actually lose money. Step-by-step directions. Step 1. Find turnkey assets that sell quickly at decent pricing on Flippa. Essentially, you're going to reverse engineer what already works on Flippa. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Go to flippa.com and look for websites for sale. These are websites that are not operational and are totally brand new. Look at the different niches that are selling. This is very important. Do not look at stuff that hasn't sold yet. Look at auctions that have successfully closed. Pay attention to the niche and the price. A pattern should emerge. Focus on niches that command really high prices. Now, don't get excited. Just because you found an auction where a totally brand new site sold for $2,000 doesn't mean that you should rush out there and start building a similar site. Pay close attention to similar websites on Flippa. Does this type of website sell quite a bit every month, or is this a once-in-a-blue-moon kind of thing? Your job is to look for a niche that sells frequently on Flippa at a high enough price. Step 2. Find service providers on Fiverr that can be used to build your asset. Now that you have a clear idea of the turnkey sites that sell well on Flippa, break down the kinds of services needed to build such an asset. If you're selling websites, you obviously need a WordPress theme designer, a WordPress developer, which includes installation, content, graphics, and you also need a person to find the domain. Put all these together so you can have a list of services for which you would look for contractors. Next, you go to Fiverr and buy strategically. Step 3. Buy several gigs to build the asset. This seems pretty straightforward, but it's actually more complicated than that. Remember, you're building a custom asset. This means that you are building something of quality. This is not stuff that you're just blowing through. This is not just stuff that you're trying to zip through and build as quickly and as cheaply as possible. Believe me, if you do things that way, it's going to show, and people looking to buy your asset probably won't because they have seen better quality. Do not compromise quality. The good news with Fiverr is that there are so many service providers there that you can pay very little to get very high quality. Do that. Step 4. Sell your turnkey asset on Flippa. This is pretty straightforward. List the turnkey asset that you have built and sell it on Flippa. Ideally, you should have the website ready for transfer on your server. It should have its own dedicated domain name. Make it easy for you to transfer digital assets on your server. Coordinate with the technical support people at your host to ensure that the assets that you plan on selling are very easy to move. List your asset on Flippa. Now, don't get excited. I know you've done your research, and I know that the chances of this thing selling the first time you list it are quite high. However, be ready for the possibility that you may have to relist this item several times before you can move it. Factor the costs, as well as the value of the time you spend relisting it into the final price of the asset. Bundle others' services and sell operational assets. This way of making money off Fiverr is really not much different from the method I have described in video 6. The big difference, and in most cases the only difference, is that this website is operational. And what does that mean? It means that this website is generating traffic and is turning that traffic into dollars. In other words, it's actually generating an income. Advantages. The big advantage of this type of Fiverr service, flipping, is the money. That's right. With everything else being equal, people would rather pay more money for an online asset that already generates money. You may have designed a very good-looking online asset. Your turnkey website may look really good. The problem is, it's anybody's guess whether it can actually translate visitors into cash. You don't have any of that kind of uncertainty with an operational asset. You know that this thing works. You know that if you buy this asset, you will make money. Given enough time, this asset will produce enough money to cover the cash you spent to buy it in the first place. Given even more time, you make pure profit. That's how this type of asset works. It's no surprise that a lot of online investors in online properties would rather buy operational assets. You stand to get more money building this type of asset than a turnkey asset. After all, people are willing to pay a big premium for an asset that is already generating traffic and cash. This is a big deal because if you establish a track record of building and selling money-making websites, your reputation becomes golden. People will seek you out as the person they can buy assets from that guarantee income. Very few people can do that. If you're able to do that, then you are going to be able to charge a lot more money than turnkey site creators. If your properties consistently make money, you can even charge a bigger premium than other people who build similar types of websites. The big advantage here for buyers is the fact that you save your customers from the headaches of picking out a profitable niche, positioning an online entity, building a brand, building traffic, crafting the right content, and converting traffic into cash. Those are big problems. You will know this firsthand if you ever try building any kind of website or platform. It's not easy. The big value that you bring to the table is that you solve these problems for your clients. They get an actual working business. Disadvantages. The big disadvantage to this business model is that you have to spend cash up front. Again, just like the business model I've described in video 6, this is a cash upfront model because you're hiring people to build the asset. Unfortunately, your spending doesn't stop there. You probably have to buy traffic if you're not generating it organically. You're also going to be spending a lot of time to fine-tune and tweak the website so it performs optimally as far as making money is concerned. You're going to have to charge money for that time. Unfortunately, this is uncertain because it's anybody's guess when, if ever, this website actually starts converting traffic into cash. Another big disadvantage is that you are very vulnerable to niche selection. You have to pick the right niche. Otherwise, the ROI simply isn't going to be there. This means time because you're going to have to research the right niche. Market demands do fluctuate over time. A potentially fatal problem with this model is that you can't just assume that since this type of website asset has historically sold on Flippa, that you only need to show up at Flippa, list the asset, and then collect your money. It may not work out that way. It may turn out that for whatever reason, people are not buying this type of website on Flippa anymore. If that's the case, then you might have to sell on your own. By that point, all bets are off as to whether you can unload this asset or if you're going to have to discount it heavily just to move it. Finally, even if you are able to find a buyer, you can still suffer headaches. How come? Well, you turn over the website to somebody and it turns out that their traffic drops like a rock. It turns out that they're no longer able to convert the traffic into cash. This happens quite a bit. If this happens, then your reputation goes down the toilet. And you may be thinking, well, that's just my online reputation. Think again. If word gets around that you are selling assets that stop working after a while, people are going to stop buying assets from you. That's the bottom line. Bad news. Step-by-step directions. Step 1. Pick successful niche sites with decent competition levels. Just go to Flippa. Figure out what sells. Make sure that you have decent competition. What do I mean by decent competition? I'm talking about competition that is not so crushing and so numerous that you really don't have a chance. There has to be enough of this type of site selling, but the potential sources or competitors on Flippa should not be so numerous that getting into this is just not worth your time. Step 2. Reverse engineer these niche sites using Fiverr gig service providers. This is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. See video 6 on what is involved. Step 3. Use Fiverr to get content and traffic. This is what's different between this business model and the one that I described in video 6. In video 6, you just use all sorts of service providers to build the asset and content. That's it. You're not pumping it with content, nor are you getting traffic. In this business model, you're going to use Fiverr to get traffic. Here is a little bit of a caveat. There are a lot of scammers on Fiverr. There are a lot of people who would not hesitate to take your money in exchange for imaginary traffic. Do yourself a big favor. Look at the ratings of these people and be willing to pay a little bit extra for real traffic. If you play your cards right, you will be able to find service providers that would pump a real American or Western European traffic to your website, which can convert well and translate into a decent monthly income for the asset. Keep it up for a few months and then flip the site. Step 4. Fine-tune your website. If you really want to make money with your website, sell it when it's time. What do I mean by that? Fine-tune conversions and traffic generation and keep scaling up the income of your site until you can fetch a handsome price for your asset. Sure, you can turn around and sell the moment your website made $100 a month, but let me tell you, people would probably not pay more than $500 to possible $1,000 for your asset. There is a multiplier effect going on here. If your asset is making $100 a month and the multiplier for the bidders for your site ranges from 5 to 10, then expect anywhere from $500 to $1,000. You see how this works? Accordingly, fine-tune your conversions and traffic generation and keep scaling them up until your monthly income from the specific asset is high enough for you to get a very decent price. It all depends on what is comfortable for you. It also depends on how quickly you need the money.